I think enough time has passed that I can talk about this. I mean, I didn't sign anything, so I don't think I can get sued. Is this my first ever story time? We'll see how it goes. Okay, it is finally time to talk about the time that I was almost on a reality TV show, but ultimately passed on this potentially life-changing opportunity. I actually think I convinced myself that the whole experience was a fever dream until I was scrolling through YouTube one day and saw Amanda of Swell Entertainment's YouTube video on the topic, and I saw the thumbnail and the title and was just like woken up. I was brought back so vividly to a moment in my life that honestly felt like a week of chaos. But when I went and dug up my email history, it was a single day. A single day crammed with just an absolute roller coaster of emotions. My experience was vastly different from Amanda's, and I definitely recommend you go check out her video for more context. And if you did watch hers, I hope this video just, helps you uncover some more layers to the story. So I want to talk about how this opportunity came about in the first place, the absolute roller coaster of trying to debate whether or not I was going to take the opportunity, and why I ultimately decided to pass in the end. And hopefully, in addition to hearing the tea, I hope that my fellow creators will take heart of some of the lessons I learned along the ride. First of all, a disclaimer. It has been a while since this happened. It has been a year and a half. So while I do have some emails and text messages to jog my memory, a lot of my conversations happened over the phone, and so we're relying solely on my recollection abilities here. So nothing that I am saying the other party has said is a direct quote. It's not verbatim. Who knows, my memory might have even made it up. This all happened allegedly. In all seriousness, I actually am not going to be saying anything bad. It was just an experience that was very bizarre and new to me. So on August 5th, 2022, just 3 months after taking content creation full-time, 3 months after quitting my day job, I got an email. It was somebody introducing themselves as one of the producers of a TV show about influencers called Influence Me. And he did link to a website and some YouTube promo to be like, here, this is what we're about. He let me know that they were looking to fill the final spot of the show and that the producing team was very interested in having that be me. They were actually going to start shooting a week later in my hometown, Vancouver, BC, in a $20 million mansion. I would be staying there with other contestants, all room and board paid for, and we would partake in challenges to create content for different brands and products. He gave me his phone number and let me know that this was moving quite quickly and that, him and his team were going to be available all hours of the weekend to get the ball rolling. And looking back at these emails, it was sent at 4 p.m. on a Friday. So also in hindsight, this roller coaster of emotions happened over the course of 5 hours. Yeah, a lot happened in that 5 hours. So let's keep the story going. So when I first got this email, I admittedly just skimmed it and it was like, what is this scam? But I read it a second time and was like, no, this was a pretty personalized message. It sounds legit. I clicked on the links that he gave me and saw that there had been this massive casting call and competition. I saw that there were celebrity judges involved, or at least, celebrities in the digital space, Pia Mia and Tana Mojo. And scrolling through, it looked like some element of this was going to be held at a castle. And the grand prize, if you were to win this competition, would be $100,000. And it was interesting because their call for creators wasn't just kind of reserved to typical influencers. It seemed as though they were looking for creative people who had an online presence of some sort. So under fashion, couture, and modeling, they were looking for designers and stylists and models. They were looking for makeup artists, travel photographers, foodies, fitness trainers, which did make me stop and think okay, this legitimizes it a bit for me because you are seeing the value in such a broad spectrum of digital creators. They were looking for people who, treated content creation or influencing as more of a business versus just, hey, I'm here to get famous and post cute photos of myself. So I remember talking to Darren and he was like, this could be really cool. This could be an opportunity. You bypassed the casting process for whatever reason. Let's hear what they have to say. So I responded back saying, I'd love some more information, heavy on the more information and just asked what next steps would look like, what would be required for me. And this prompted an opportunity to talk to the producer on the phone. So then I had the call. And this is where I got to glean some more information about this whole thing. And honestly, talking to the producer, he was so kind. It was a great conversation. It was on speaker with Darren in the background, like writing notes, holding up signs with questions for me to ask him. So the first thing I started to understand was that I'm assuming, like, this is totally just my own assumption, nobody told me this, but I think that somebody dropped out and, you know, they were filming the pilot of this show in a week, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they really needed somebody to fill it. And obviously, like, a big question on my mind was why me? I think I had maybe 12-ish thousand followers at the time. Like, yes, I did this full time, but I wasn't a massive creator. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines of, you know, the producers were searching for people. They came across my page. They liked my brightness, my positivity, the quality of my content, all of which, you know, like, did a lot to butter me up, which is maybe probably his intention. And you know, I think when I had stepped back from it, I also was like, okay, yeah, well, if they're filming in Vancouver, they probably want a Vancouver creator. You know, it's going to save them on flights and stuff. It will allow them to like expedite this whole process a lot faster. Their pool might not have been very big. Maybe it was that diversity card. Like, who knows? We will absolutely never know why I had been reached out to. But ultimately, the vibe I was getting on this call was very much, if you want it, it is yours. But as I wasn't really jumping up and down at the opportunity, I was trying not to, you know, show all my cards. They did also emphasize that, like, we really do need to fill this fast. And so we are naturally looking at other people too. Who knows? Maybe there's 50 other people that have this exact same story of that exact same day, exact same time frame, and they had to butter us all up. Who knows? So in talking to him more, I started to learn that this was going to be kind of reminiscent of Big Brother, where instead of like a bunch of random people living in a house together, it was going to be a bunch of influencers. And there was going to be, you know, different challenges that you'd have to complete in order to win or stay in the house or something like that. And because we were all creators, these challenges would be around creating content. I actually wish I could remember exactly what he said because I did like the way he described these challenges, where the goal would be to create different pieces of content for different brands, and you would be challenged to create something engaging with good storytelling that captured like the ethos of the brand while also, you know, your own spin and connecting with your audience and everything. And I was like, that's really cool. That sounds like somebody who understands influencing or content creating on a deeper level than just like, I'm gonna pose with this product placement. And I also kind of understood that though the pilot and everything was going to be like pre-filmed, that eventually there would be this live component of it where you would be required to post your content and people would, I think, either vote on it or you would be judged by its reception. Like it was going to be a very interactive sort of reality TV show. It's like it was going to happen pretty real time. Then we talked a little bit more about the dynamics of the show because like I don't watch or enjoy much reality TV. The most I've ever watched was like the very first Love is Blind and that one Bachelorette with the black girl. That's the extent of my reality TV knowledge. And I was just so hesitant to be on a reality TV show where it just seems to like thrive on drama and negativity and like stuff that is just so not me. The name of my handle is Comfy Girl Curls. I'm low-key, I'm chill, I'm conflict adverse. Like, yeah, it just didn't seem like a fit in that way. And I do remember him trying to assure me that, you know, like they weren't there to specifically stir up drama. They wanted to really capture whatever happened, however it unfolded. And he was like, you know, who knows? Maybe everyone really gets along and it turns into like a cool hype house dynamic. And though I really do appreciate like that sentiment, I just feel like that doesn't make for good TV. I don't know. I feel like my gut was telling me that like that might not have been the way that it went. And it's also always dependent on the other people they have on the show. Like if they want it to be this fun, positive place, but the other people that were cast are like in it to be this big catty like internet personality, then yeah, that's not going to be what happens. Anyways, and I did get some understanding that this was going to like run for quite a while. This initial commitment was just going to be a few days of shooting again for the pilot, but you know, they were hoping to put it in front of networks and get it picked up. They made it sound like they were already kind of in contact with some networks who were like waiting on this pilot. And it was kind of like, if it gets picked up, then you're going to have many months committed. I do not remember how much, but like he was asking me about my travel plans for the next year. And I was like, I have a wedding to go to next August. a year from now. And he was like, oh, okay, like that should be okay. Like, I don't remember exactly how the conversation happened, but it sounded like this was going to be like a little bit of a long haul commitment. There's kind of this like, keep your schedule open type of vibe. And I also discovered that this was not going to be a paid opportunity, which I mean, like, wasn't super surprising because, again, I don't know much about reality TV, but I think a lot of it is people are just excited for the opportunity and they hope to like cash in on it on the other side. So, you know, they drop their jobs, they drop whatever, and just kind of like trust fall. And that is kind of what was emphasized in our conversation, was that like, yes, the prize money is $100,000, but you know, this is hopefully going to be picked up by a massive network. So your potential exposure is huge. And, you know, that's why people do this, is to be able to skyrocket their reach. And the thing is, this isn't false. Like, I didn't feel like it was a cop-out in him saying that, like, oh, like, you're not paid, but you'll be paid in exposure, because that is kind of how reality TV shows work. Like, especially the reality TV show competitions. Like, as far as I know, most of them don't pay people. And it's so true that people come out the other side with just these ballooned follower counts. It's such a tried and true recipe. Like, again, quoting my limited bachelor knowledge, it's like people being like, I don't think he's here for the right reasons. Because it's like, yeah, no, the real reason is because you can come out the other side of this with hundreds of thousands of followers and you basically become that mega influencer at the end regardless. And so while that was never something that I truly like wanted for myself, there is a sort of attraction, especially as like a creator who I feel like is like a working class creator. We're like out here grinding. There's that allure to being like, what if I just didn't have to work so hard for any of this? What if brands weren't challenging my rates right, left, and center? Like, I just had a massive audience with the snap of a finger. It's an attractive thing. And so we ended the conversation with me saying I was going to think really hard. He said he was going to send me the participation agreement. I said I would go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And I think we had said that I had 24 hours or something like that. By early next Saturday morning, I had to reach out to him with an answer so they could, you know, get the ball moving more with somebody else. And to get an idea where my head was at this time, like, I was kind of excited about it. Again, it wasn't something that was really me, but it felt like I was being presented with the opportunity of a lifetime. And like, again, the conversation had been so good. He answered all of my questions. And so I hung up and pulled like a dial a friend twice. And I was given polar opposite advice, both coming from honestly like the best place ever. So first we had team do it. The first friend I called, she was so ecstatic. She's like, are you kidding me? You have to do this. This is huge. Like, why wouldn't you? And I'm really thankful for her because she really challenged me to question my hesitancy and ask if my fears were rooted in a fear of success or opportunity or a fear of failure even. When battling the question of what if this doesn't work out, she was the one who encouraged me to lean into the more whimsy side of, well, what if it does? And I really thank her for that. This person I would say is a good friend of both Darren and I. So like Darren and I went for a long walk, we called her and we kind of started to just imagine all of the positives. Like really what could be the potential of all of this reach to have like my career skyrocket. It was like a really exciting feeling, like we were on this high. And this friend at the end of it, although she was like, team do it, 100% go for it, she did encourage me to call friend number 2, who did actually have experience being on reality TV. And in reaching out to friend number 2, I was so deeply grounded. She gave me so much good advice and just insider information on what it's like to be on reality TV. And she said, my advice is to not do it, but if you do, just be very careful and pragmatic. She really helped me see that if you do go on a reality TV show like that, you are really at the mercy of the producer and the edits. Like you don't have control over how you are portrayed, and that often producers might manipulate you to act a certain way. On a slight tangent, have you guys seen some of the TikToks of people who were on Wife Swap? Like some of the kids coming out about the trauma they endured? There was a young girl who had said that she sat down with a psychologist and did like a psych evaluation and shared all her traumas and triggers. And the producers turned around and systematically used all those triggers against her in order to get like these big reactions out of her. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like all shows are like this, but we hear enough stories that like it's good to be wary. And finally, this second friend left me with a comment that really hit home. She said, "I don't think you need a show to shortcut your career." And it really made me stop and realize that that shortcut was what attracted me to the idea in the first place. It wasn't about the experience of being on a show, because I didn't have a desire to be on TV, period. I didn't have a desire to be living in a home with a bunch of strangers competing with them. I'm competitive, but like board game competitive, not Instagram challenge competitive. So after that conversation, I opened up the contract that had come through, and I feel like that was like the final, it's not gonna work out for me. And the thing is, even though the contract was like very, to me, I don't think it was that horrifying for a reality TV show. Like everything I was reading, I was like, well, this makes sense. Like if you were the producing team or like running the show, of course you would want a contract like this. Like this is what protects you. But I quickly realized that as somebody who is a full-time content creator, like that's her job, I don't think it would have been the right call for me. And so here is what made me say no in the end. First, as someone whose entire livelihood is reliant on her online presence, I just did not feel comfortable giving up the rights to how I was portrayed. I had worked so hard to build this online presence for myself, this brand for myself, and to just like take all of that and put it in somebody else's hands. Like I just feel like that would be a very irresponsible thing. And tying right into that was the idea that, you know, we were going to be riding solely on exposure. Like there was going to be no payment coming in for this. You know, a couple days of shooting for the pilot, like was no big deal. But if it did get picked up and I was successful on it, like that would be a long time frame going without any income. Like I know at the time Darren was like, you know, we can make it work. We could make it work if I felt truly in my heart that like it was the right opportunity for me. And also as a creator, if you watch any of my other videos on how to do this thing full time, I am so nitpicky about contracts and usage rights and everything. And when you go on a reality show, these rights are in perpetuity. And you know how we feel about in perpetuity. And I also just had like technical questions. You know, if I was creating content for brands as part of these challenges, what about exclusivity that I had already agreed on with other brands in my normal life as a creator? And if somebody else owned the rights to the content that I created as part of this challenge or this competition, whether that's production or the brands themselves, or even if they just kept like showing the show every so often, it'd be like, here's Kea, you know, making content for Red Bull. Like that would affect my opportunity to work with other brands in the future based on their exclusivity requirements. So like, yeah, I felt like it was just putting too much of my future into question. And so I ultimately declined. I sent a really simple email sharing my reservations. And you know, I feel like there was almost this part of me that was hoping like, if I lay out all the problems I have, that maybe they might be like, oh yeah, no problem, we can change that in the contract. But you know, that didn't happen because I feel like these are all pretty blanket standard contracts. And I'm not gonna lay out the entire email I sent, but I said, I appreciate you reaching out to me, but I'm gonna have to pass on the opportunity. My online presence is my livelihood, and I'm not comfortable giving up rights to my image, content, and control of how I am portrayed in perpetuity. And a couple other things specific to the contract. All that being said, I'm incredibly honored to have been considered, and I wish you all the best in the program. And the email back was so nice. I feel like with all of the negativity you hear about reality TV shows and producers, there's this feeling that everyone's really scammy and trying to manipulate you. So in sending this email, I was almost expecting some kind of snide remark back, like the way that you do with like brand deals sometimes where, you know, it's not a right fit or whatever, or you're charging too much and they're like, yeah, well, you're like missing out on this opportunity of a lifetime. And they just like say something snarky to just like, I don't know, jab you one last time. There was none of that. It was absolutely lovely, saying we totally understand. It was great chatting and wishing you the best in your journeys. And I was like, oh, thanks. And there's one final piece to this that I don't think I talk about very much or at all. And it's that after declining, I fell into such a severe low. And I couldn't explain it to anybody. I don't want to be dramatic and say it was like a depression, but like I did not want to get out of bed. I could not create anything. And it was this feeling like not like I had made the wrong decision. It wasn't regret, but it was like this mourning of a potential big opportunity. It was like this feeling, this gut instinct of knowing, yes, you made the right call, but you can also be sad that you made it and sad that you didn't have this like fast track to success. And it was just such a weird feeling. And the thing is also like hindsight is 2020, like time heals all wounds, because like now that we're a year and a half past this point, I have had so many incredible career and life affirming opportunities come up that are just so much better aligned than this opportunity would have ever been. I feel like that opportunity might have even like been a disservice to like my credibility in a lot of the opportunities that I've had. Like I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of education like on this channel on like how to make it as a full-time creator, the realities, the hustle of it. And like who would want to hear that from somebody who went on a reality TV show and like jumped hundreds of thousands of followers? Like shortly after that, I ended up getting like a commercial agent. I started doing some commercials here and there. Like it's just, I don't know, a much more aligned career path. And also on top of that, nothing has aired. Again, that's why I think it's like so valuable to kind of circle back to Amanda's video, because it just like brings up a lot of questions about the entire program. I feel like my story is much more of like an introspective story than like a commentary on this entire like reality TV show itself. And yeah, so who's to say maybe it never got picked up in the end? Maybe like, I don't know how showbiz works. Like maybe it's still developing in the background, but like, yeah, it was something that wasn't meant to be. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. I'm still so grateful to have been considered for the thing. Like it's always nice when a complete stranger sees you working and is like, I see the value in you. But I think that we don't always have to jump at those opportunities where we like feel validated. Yeah, there's my story time. Do you think I should have said yes? Where do you think we would be right now if I had and it had picked up and blown up? All things that like didn't happen, so it's all speculation. But thanks for watching and until next time.